In a well-run system, the greatest representation is that of the people. How many young people engage in politics? How many young people engage in politics? It's a happy show. Right? And I think that the time has come where we need to stop politicking and we need to really focus on the issues.
Greetings everyone, TrinEnews here, and we will be presenting the P2DP segment. That's right, it's the Power to the People segment, where we report the needs of the people and explore how politics and even politricks affects us, especially the youth. Not only that, but from that kind of education, we find out solutions. And that's what this is all about. It's not just talk, it's action too. Even in all the crime and the corruption that we are facing right now, positive action, positive change can and will happen because of this kind of education. But speaking of corruption, that is exactly what the speakers discuss in this segment. So let's put this all into a little bit of context here. There was a meeting set up so that 4 official speakers could give some speeches. And you will see them sitting up front at a table in the video. They are Mr. Nirvan Maharaj, the president of the All Trinidad General Workers Trade Union, also known as the ATGWTU. Also, Senator David Abdullah, a government senator and president of the Federation of Independent Trade Unions, FITUN. And of course, he is a member of the Movement for Social Justice, also known as MSJ. Another speaker featured is the Honorable Basdeo Panday, former 5th Prime Minister of the country. And last but not least, the Honorable Ramesh Maharaj, former Attorney General. Now, even though these speakers' speeches were excellent, today's episode doesn't have those speeches. But we will feature those speeches soon. What is in today's episode then? Well, you know we at TrinEnews like to focus on the people. So, we chose to make this episode specifically about the Q&A, the question and answer session that happened after all of the speakers' speeches were over. No offense to the speakers, but this part made a lot of sense and really echoed with me. They spoke about these main things. 1. The colonial system that still exists in TNT. 2. The lack of justice. No police, nobody helping. Justice cannot really be carried out in this country, it seems. We are not safe and the people don't know what to do. 3. Unemployment in the youth. Now, if any of these things got your interest, then please stay tuned. And stay tuned also for commentary, which I believe will do a lot of good. And I believe it's my duty to attach to this video, because it is our duty as citizens of this country to take part in politics. Not to just sit on sidelines, but to get involved, because we all need re-education from our brainwashed state. And I want to point out that we are the only newscast who stuck around for this Q&A session. That is right, the other people left. All your mainstream media, as soon as the people started talking, the people, not the speakers, but the people in the audience, all the reporters leave. And that is why we are proud to be local independent news. Find out what is really affecting you, Trinidad. Support your own local community. And let's jump into today's broadcast.
Thank you, panelists, because this has been informative on many levels. But I just really want us to reflect and understand what has happened when you think back of what we inherited under a colonial structure, a top-down system of governing. It is not surprising that corruption will be enshrined in such a system. For colonialism to have strive, you had to have certain structures and certain systems in place. The challenge to me has always been this. When we became independent, we were supposed to change that to a ground bottom-up model of governing. And what I mean by that is pretty much some of what Mr. Panday spoke about, which is the concept of the separation of the executive and so on. And it is necessary because in a ground-up system, the greatest representation is that of the people. You could not possibly be on the executive and be in the parliament seeking the interests of the people, where clearly that's a conflict of interest. The thing is, in a ground-up model, you see something called intellectual equity, where the genius of the artists and the sportsmen, it's no different than the genius of the lawyers and doctors. Every citizen is valued in such a system. In such a system, the social part in terms of addressing issues like crime will be the focus as opposed to military part. In such a system, small businesses, like in the United States, 80% of the small businesses carry the wealth and the weight of the United States in terms of development. In a ground-up model, the emphasis is on small businesses. But you see, we maintain that top-down system for the very reason it's beneficial to 10% of the people. And so then you sit and you ask, how come crime has reached where it reached? Our policies have made criminals of our children and have destroyed family life. The very policies that are not supportive of the small person and the average person. The thing is, in a ground-up system, and we tested this in the constituency of St. Joseph, looked at who we call criminal elements who have been in the URP for years, and after working with them in 18 months and setting up small businesses, not only did 26 of the 27 never returned to criminal activity, but expanded through the support the small businesses. So what I'm talking about, for the next election, we should be looking at and asking these MPs, candidates, what is their philosophy of governing? If it's a top-down system, irrespective of what the party is, it will never be any different after 2015. So I'm asking all of us to ask those questions now and look at a system of governing that is relevant and beneficial to the majority of people. I wish I had more time to talk about. Thank you.
I went, a female officer, 2 days ago. She was working 36 hours straight, a female. She was 39 years and a 15-year-old son. They're having 36 hours without any supervision. We want to know what crime is going on. She had to work 36 hours because what she's being paid. That is what we are being faced with. We are not there to supervise our children. Our children, then we get other people to supervise our children. And 10 to 1, they don't have good intentions. I am pleading with these officers out there. The other thing I heard about crime. Everybody boasting about the crime statistics being down, except murder. Let me tell you this. Where I live, let me say, nearly all my neighbors' houses have been broken into. And I can assure you, none made reports to the police.
Yes.
Because they felt it was a waste
of time.
It was easier for us to know who's the piper in the area and go and hit him some clout.
That's right.
And to report it to the police. I'm speaking factual. You have stabbing, you don't report it. It's a waste of time. So all people boasting about statistics is a waste of time. The only thing that with murder is the dead body, so it has to be reported. Right? And I explain. I am asking everyone, violences, I don't know what to do. What miracle we have to ask to improve what is going on here. But what I'm asking is that we have over 50,000 security officers in Trinidad and Tobago, and at least 40,000 are being paid meager wages. That is why you would leave the children home unguarded.
But I think in relation to crime, it is quite clear that people are losing or have lost confidence in the police or the government to deal with the crime problem. And therefore, I think what the last speaker talked about, it is actually a fact that many people do not go to police stations again to make report to the police. And as a matter of fact, I can tell you last week, I had a visit of about 10 First Division officers to my office to discuss matters. And based on what they said, it is quite clear that police officers in Trinidad and Tobago from the top to the bottom are not motivated. I also had a visit from about 25 Second Division officers, and it's the same problem. And the police officers themselves are finding it very difficult to be able to become motivated when the government, and according to what they are saying, the acting commissioner of police is contributing to the fact that there is no motivation. So I do not want us to think all of this is the police fault. It has to do with political motivation, political direction. And when you have a system in which people feel that the values of the governance, and not with the leadership or the ministers of cabinet, is a breakdown of law and order.
You would have noticed something that happened to people who got and spoke of their problems. Right? And if you go around the society, anyway, you hear people talking of their problems. They cannot get the government, they cannot get the ministers to do this or to do that. Sorry, Maharaj, the honor. Thank you, ma'am. In case you didn't get that, I'll repeat. What I'm saying is, if you go around the society, as happened here this evening, you will hear people complaining of their problems. They have all kinds of problems, and they expect the government to do something about it. I am asking the question, why doesn't the government do something about it? That is the question. Why don't they? And what can we do to get them to do something about it? They don't do anything about it for the simple reason that we can't do them nothing. They go there, they do what they like, because they control the parliament, they control the law, they control lawmaking as well as law enforcement. They control everything. So who are you and I for them to listen to? So let them talk, we won't listen to them. And it is the present system that allows them to do that. We've got to change that system where the people have power to call the minister up before the parliament, as they do under the United States government, where the Senate, which is the legislature, can call ministers. They have committees, investigating committees, and they can call ministers before they're in front of the television so that the whole world is listening and say, why was this not done? Why was that not done? What are you doing about it? That's the system I am talking about. And brothers, we will go on complaining from now until thy kingdom come. We will go on complaining if we are complaining now, and we will end up being where we are doing nothing and getting nothing. That is the constitutional reform.
So the two, and one or two things to what has been said. In terms of crime and violence and the demoralization, for example, the police service and the sense of hopelessness that people feel. You know, one of the things is that examples have to be set from the top. And if at the top we are seeing and hearing, as learned former Attorney General said, of corruption taking place to the extent that it is, then what does someone lower down the social ladder, so to speak, think? If they say, if they are going to be making millions corruptly, why don't I expect, or why should you expect me to want to eat a food by any other means necessary, including banditry? In other words, we have gotten to the point where, as the novelist said, the center can't hold, it isn't holding, because we look around us and there is no example that can motivate people to do the right thing. Everyone in Trinidad and Tobago, from top to down, is eating a food. We talk about the one who wants a person who wants a CPEP job or URP job and prepared to put on a party jersey and go to the meeting as doing that to eat a food. But they are doing that no less than the businessman who is giving the 40% to get the contract. And when that happens, or the professionals who are not prepared to speak out against wrongdoing because they want to get the brief, or they want to get a consultancy job, or they want to get something in some state enterprise as a senior manager. They know that it is wrong, but they're prepared to keep their mouth shut in order to eat a food. And until we deal with that as well, we are not going to build sufficient consciousness for a movement that will bring about the constitutional reform that Mr. Panday so correctly says is necessary. And so the question, Joy Best used to say, or ask for the question, how does a culture escape from itself? If everyone is corrupt, corruption is no longer an issue. And that is where we are heading. And therefore we are comfortable in allowing the politicians to do what they want, and so on. But we, the people, can change that. But we have to build, but we have that sense of powerlessness, which is why we give up, or why we simply grumble and complain, whether politely at the cocktail parties and all-inclusive fests, or block roads, and so on at another level. What we have to do is take a stand for what is right and build a movement to bring about the change that is necessary in terms of constitution and the institutions of national life.
If I may make a quick comment on what the first speaker said, I totally agree with you. We may attend many forums like this, and we may come to many discussion meetings, and at the end of the day we go our separate ways. And we deal with our individual issues in isolation of each other. The time has come for civil society to understand the power that it holds, and the fact that it is civil society that could force any government to take decisions on behalf of the people. So I think the time has come for us to unite together, and though our interests may be different, there are times when we must support each other. We cannot do this in isolation of each other. So I agree with you totally.
Thank you, Mr. Maharaj. We will open the floor for a couple more comments and questions.
Yes, because right now, unless this put into that constitutional structure, it won't happen. Because after communities decide what they really want, then at another level, they should have like a national community meeting where they prioritize, they go to the different areas. So another tug of war. People know these people really need these resources before us, you know. So and so over there needs something. But how it is right now, the communication doesn't exist, not even within a small circle. So there you have just people holding this political ideology, and they want to bring it to everything. They do it at a community level. You have to unite around your issues, you know? And all the politicians, so to speak, got to understand what your problem is, you know? We're experiencing that. Right.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I just wanted to highlight the issue of high youth unemployment and the impact it is having on society. So far, we are seeing so many students come out of uni. And we must ask ourselves how much of these students are actually being hired in sustainable employment. Right? I have a brother coming out of uni and he's making $14 an hour. That is a little bit above minimum wage. And every day in the media, you're hearing a news scandal about somebody who eating a big food with bogus papers. And we sit in our comfortable places and nobody hitting the streets. Right? I mean, I am prepared to hit the streets. But, you know, we know what the consequences of that may be, but nobody is prepared to hit the streets. And how we could come now and tell these young people that obey the law, do what is right, hard work reaps rewards. All of these things doesn't make sense to young people anymore. And then we ask ourselves now, what is the reasons for crime? Are we serious as a society? If you look around this room now, how many young people coming here or volunteering to come here to seek their own interests? Maybe it might be to accompany another family member, so on, but how many young people engaging in politics? And I think that we are at a crisis. I think that we need to concentrate on the younger people of the population because they need guidance. And if we don't do anything, I don't know what else could happen.
Tell me, before you put the mic down, why are the youths not interested? What are your thoughts on that?
Because for most young people, it doesn't make sense.
That's right.
As far as they see it as rhetoric, it does not go beyond that. Right? It's a puppy show. Right? And I think that the time has come where we need to stop politicking and we need to really focus on the issues. Because sustainable development cannot take place if we exclude certain members of society. Young people being a critical part of that process. So until we prepare to put things in place that will adequately address the needs of citizens, we will be in shambles. And we might see a repeat of 1937 or 1970, but this time it might be more bloody. Right? So before that time reach, I think that we should be more proactive and really try to engage the issues, the real issues. Thank you.
I think those in authority are failing to understand. They don't know history. And one of the things history teaches us is that any people, no matter how passive, no matter how humble, no matter how docile, if pushed too far, if they believe they have been betrayed by those whom they have trusted, will one day, or may one day, react in ways unexpected of them. This is the message to the government today. Thank you.
Very quickly, I wanted to just add two other things with respect to leadership. One is mentoring and planning for successorship, so that young people can in fact be the leaders. When I was a young person at university in 1972, 75, 76 and so on, I didn't see myself as a youth leader or a student leader. I saw myself really as a national leader. I contested general elections in 1976, the original ULF, Mr. Panday. That was when he won election for the first time in Cuba North. And I contested the Tunapuna seat. I was 21 on nomination day. I turned 22 during the election campaign. And so young people need to be empowered, but by the culture of organizations that we have. That's another important dimension of leadership. And if we're going to bring about change, the energy and dynamism of that change is going to come from amongst young people, because we don't have the same levels of energy and dynamism as we did 40 years ago. So I just thought I would make that point. Secondly, I just wanted to personally thank Mr. Ray Kubla Singh, who was the initiator of this forum today. I forgot to say that earlier, and I think we owe him, as an older person, a debt of gratitude for this. And to say that we had started in MSJ a process similar to this in April last year called the Assembly of Citizens Empowered, which we call ACE. And the reason why we said ACE is because really, if you have the ACE, then you have power. You can hang a jack or a queen, right? We don't have a queen, but you certainly make the queen irrelevant in the game. And so we call it ACE, but it's really Assembly of Citizens Empowered. And we see this activity today, which is why we so readily jumped on Mr. Kubla Singh's invitation to be part of this and to help to organize it, is we really see this as part of a process which isn't owned by MSJ. It really is citizens coming together, as Nirvan correctly said, recognizing that when citizens come together, then they in fact have power. And we would like to continue this process after Carnival, 27th of April, and take it all over the country. So if we have 150 or 200 here today, and we have another 200 and so on, and you add that up over a period of time, we really have many thousands of people being organized around a common agenda to bring about fundamental change in Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you.
I would just like to talk on the youth. I was very impressed with this speaker who talked about the youth. I think that unless the young people get involved, it may be very difficult to effect change in Trinidad and Tobago, because there must be ways and means that we can get them interested. As I see it, what will happen, obviously, is that the young people throughout the country would have to feel that this is going to be part and parcel of their struggle. So therefore, it is a challenge to us in our different organizations to try and find ways and means to get the young people involved. I don't think the electorate of Trinidad and Tobago would want purely some of the old faces in politics again. I think if you have to put a team together, it would have to be new faces, probably mixed with some old faces. But I think that one has to be practical about this, is that you've got to get the young people involved. The second thing, I think that what is happening here is quite clear that you have people in the UNC who are very dissatisfied as to the policies of the UNC being the UNC. As a matter of fact, the perception is UNC is not UNC. Similarly, people in the COP, they're believing that the COP in government is not the COP that they thought they would belong to. And therefore, you will have a situation in which we should really aim to have a coalition of people from different walks of life in order to build an organization. There is no other way that we can do this, because time is short, but people have to get together, bury their differences, and find a way not only to have the traditional followers of parties, but I think we have to find a way to attract the people who have not been involved in politics. I personally believe that the partnership government cannot win another election in Trinidad and Tobago. But what we do not want to happen is a repeat of 2010, in that you really have exchange and not revenue.
It is this problem of involving the youth that makes me talk about proportional representation in the House. I have heard here that the youths are saying, them fellas only mama guy me. I vote for them, I'm an appendage, I am there, my job is to hold flags in the party meetings and so on, but once they get into power, they ignore me. Well, surely the answer have got to be to have a system where the youths go into parliament on their own. They don't depend on anybody. And that can only happen with constitution, with proportional representation, where the youths get together in the nation and say there's an election. We youths are putting up people for this election. And if we youths get 20% of the votes in the country, we are going to get 20 seats. proportion, say 20 seats in Parliament. That is the only way, in my personal view, that the youth will begin to feel that, look, we belong to the system and we could go into the system because we are not sending anybody there to fool us, we are sending our own to look after us. That was the reasoning behind proportional representation.
In 2010, when the partnership went to the population, it said that we are going to change, we're going to make the people most powerful every day. They promised the right of recall, Mr. Panday. They promised the right of recall, and they haven't given it. So I think what we need to do is that we need to find a way how we could get to the point where we can effect the constitutional reform. But I think there can be no doubt about it that we have to have constitutional reform in Trinidad and Tobago.
Somebody told me we voted to change, and all we get was exchange, short change, small change, and now they're taking the pocket change.
Thank you, Mr. Panday. And a special thanks to every single one of you here today who came out to this forum to discuss issues that are plaguing our society today. I would like to also say thank you to Mr. Jared Narayan Singh for having us here this afternoon. And again, a special thanks to Mr. Kulal Singh for initiating today's forum.
Alright, thank you very much for viewing TrinEnews today. Now is the time when I start to comment on what exactly you just saw. And I do recommend that you stay to hear this. If you're not interested though, you can definitely leave now. But I can say this. I do believe that this kind of commentary is what will change TNT for the better. And I just simply invite you to find out for yourself. Not just to listen to me, but so that you could comment and we could raise awareness together. So please, comment below in the YouTube, on Facebook, wherever it is you want. Share this video all you want. Raise awareness. Here at TrinEnews, we are ready to talk because the youth is ready to act, ready to protect our citizens from the crimes of the criminal element which is found in the government and in so-called Trinis. TrinEnews is real news for real Trinis though, not the criminals. Real Trinis who have hearts and who are willing to fight for real rights. So if you really want change, listen on, stay tuned, it's coming up after this message.
Time for real news.
No more hidden agendas.
No more media manipulation.
You really want to see the people?
We need to fight ignorance with education. We need to learn to appreciate what our forefathers gave us. But don't forget, we are the new generation.
Alright.
What do we need to build our nation? We need to understand the needs of the people and our government. We need art and culture. We need real spirituality, okay? We need health.
For Real News, presented by TrinEnews Studios. Visit TrinEnews.com and click TrinEnews for more information. Independent, alternative, grassroots news for youth who want change.
Colonialism. Trinidad, we have been colonial for centuries now, you know that? That means we are not in charge of us. That means we are a colony controlled by somebody else, namely a foreign entity. Now I know what you're thinking. You're saying to me, oh, we are not a colony, we are independent. We are the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. Well, I have news for you, youths of TNT. Why don't we remember how Malcolm X spoke of USA as I am now about to speak of TNT. Well, you see, Trinidad is just as much a colonial power as England or France ever was. In fact, we are more colonial, and I'll tell you why. Because Trinidad is a hypocrite. It says we have rights and we are independent, but we are not. In the past, you had free people and slave people. Today, you have free people and slave people who think they are free. Some people might try to trick you. They might try to make you think that you are free, but you're nothing but a 21st century slave. A slave to the job, a slave without a job. Or maybe you're a slave in school, or a slave out of school. Hell, right now we have people who are slaves in money, and slaves, obviously, without money. Nationalism is the only way out, my brothers and sisters, and we will discuss that further soon. For now, just remember it took nationalism to remove colonialism from Asia and Africa, and it will take Trinidadian nationalism to remove colonialism from not only our politics but our minds. Yes, our minds here in this country. Now this lady, this first speaker, she really knew what she was talking about. You see, she sees that we have a structure put into place that keeps the poor poor and makes the rich richer. But what is the solution? What is nationalism? Well, putting it in simple terms, it is where the people, the real Trinidadian people who are not shamed to be Trini, who not on their knees to some foreign entities, finally take charge and control their politics, their politicians, and the economics, the money in their own communities. You know, a lot of people look Trini, but they're not really Trini. Their mind is not thinking of Trini. They don't care about Trinidad, it's thinking of themselves. Their mind is thinking of pleasing some master who's connected to overseas, just like if we were a colony. You see where I'm coming from? It's the same thing. Get real Trinis in power and have each community take charge of itself, and maybe that will save us. You make that decision, Trinidad. But what about the money she mentioned? Remember she mentioned small businesses? Well, me and my friends, we have a small business. Everybody could build a small business. She said emphasis should be on small businesses. Yes! Well, if you are a Trinidadian nationalist, and I think you are because you care about the country, then you will see it is all about re-education of our people, so we can realize the importance of knowing that when you spend your dollar out of the community in which you live, the community in which you spend your dollars gets richer. And obviously the community, your community, out of which you spend your money gets poorer. Do you see where the money goes? Do you think about it before you spend it? Trinis today are breaking their necks to spend what little money they have with the upper class. The brand name, the elite, the rich, internationally acclaimed stores, and nobody is bothering with the Trinidadian stores. Nobody or few people want to really keep things local. Not enough people are thinking, well, let me open my store. Let me bring money into the community instead of selling out. No, the first thing people say is, hey, if I open a store, I'm looking for international customers only. Well, what happens? What happens, Trinidad? The community becomes a ghetto. You complain about how run down it is, but you self run it down. Sometimes we have businesses, local ones, in our community, but the owner, he doesn't even live in the community. It's not so hard, and I have to keep telling myself through all my challenges that it's not so hard. Look at B's ice cream, homemade ice cream. They start small, they expanded and expanded. So we can too, because we fund each other, and when we control our businesses, we control the employment. All this is old news, you know. I am just reiterating what the greats from before said. No more picketing or marching or drinking yourself to death because you can't find a job. No more colonialism. This is the talk about independence now. Right now we are not nationalistic. We have the Trini flag on our car. But we serve a different country, really, when you think about it. Anytime you have to rely on the enemy, and there is an enemy, which you could refer to as the Western foreign power structure, the mentality of pleasing something outside the country. When you have to rely on that for jobs, which you do, you're in bad shape. Yes, I know America has hard-working people, and we should take that habit from them. We need to progress in that way, but no. You know what we do? Or most of Trinidad does? Trinidad takes the habit of greed from America, which has both things, hard-working people and very greedy people. When I have to do a work for someone, you know what they want? Let's say 7 out of 10 times. They want everything. They want all of your time and with little or no pay. Now, is that being business savvy or is that being greedy? But that's the business world of Trinidad. That's the infrastructures that we have to eliminate. I'm a businessman and an artist, but all these kinds of educational, independent programming, like this TrinEnews, I have to pay for out of my pocket. Unless we help each other by getting the word out there about the services that each one of us offers. If you could plant, if you could garden, if you know about agriculture, if you know about this, you know about that, get it out there. Our company does animation and video. We could do commercials for people. We focus on small businesses that are progressive for the country. If they want advertising, come to TrinEvolve. All of this is the kind of information that they're supposed to teach students about the real world when they get out there to make their own business and be so-called entrepreneurs. But you know, we don't raise entrepreneurs. We raise sellouts. But what good is making it if you sell out while you're making it? That's why we have people leaving this country. We don't want our youth leaving the country and becoming drones, becoming robots somewhere else, not ever even knowing about their roots, not ever feeling that pride, that healthy pride in their culture. Comments on the second speaker. All those houses are being broken into. He said that they go into the police and it's not making any sense. It's a waste of time. Why report anything, right? What will the police do? Nothing. And I agree. Now, I like police. At least those who are real police, men and women. One of my grandfathers was a policeman. And we do need protection. But if no one is going to do it, and if the policemen and women themselves cannot do it, then who will do it? Not us? Not the people? Isn't that what being an independent nation is all about? Sticking up for yourself. So please, at this point in time, I suggest that you go to this link, check it out. It may be for you, it may not be for you. You don't need to partake in it. But what it is about is night patrols. Now I know what you're thinking. That is risky. That's dangerous. But what matters is the thought. The thought is what matters. That you can stand up. You can stop all of these things that is happening in our country. To some degree you can. Bullying, the crimes, the rapes, everything. The real crime is not all of that. The real crime is sitting by and letting people get hurt. And that's the lesson here. Crime only happens because we let it. We allow communities to not have communication. Nobody cares. And everyone is so quick to hide their business in this country. We shouldn't be afraid of talking out our problems. We should be brave and be honest because we are all human and we all have illnesses of the mind. It's much better to be honest about it rather than you let it fester and degenerate into something worse and worse till you have the current state of the world right now, of the country right now, where all these fathers, all these stepfathers are molesting their children. All the endless amount of women who getting beaten and raped. That's why I say night patrol. Go around your community and look out for your community. That's all I'm saying. I'm not going any further than that. We are Trinis. Our young men and women are warriors. And I know that. I know some of us was born as warriors. But what happens when we don't utilize that energy, that spirit within us for something good? Well, we must use it for bad, right? That's why we have all these bad boys and thugs. Well, why not? Where else the energy will be put? They don't have any examples. They don't have any role models that they could learn from. They was not taught about Malcolm X. They was not taught about the warriors of our nation. And plenty of the elders who are their parents are not warriors, and you know that. They're just slaves. But the ones who are not slaves, the real Trinis, nobody gives them the time of day sometimes. But I'll tell you what, this channel will. TrinEnews will explore those wise elders so that we could interpret their wisdom into our wisdom and save ourselves. Because the youth is tomorrow. The youth will live their own tomorrow. We don't have any role models in our history books even. All we have is that some Christopher Columbus came and he bring first world intellect to ignorant, retarded, tribal people. That's our history. Maybe that is where our Western worship has come from. Maybe that's why we refuse to be nationalistic. Maybe it's the media. Maybe it's the TV. Maybe it's the radio. Maybe it's the so-called art that they're pushing all of these negative things through. Even if you push in nonsense, I don't care, you know. No problem. We all need to cut loose and be a little brainless once in a while. But does that mean that you have to go and drink? In Trinidad it does. Does that mean that you have to go and smoke? In Trinidad it does. Does that mean that you have to go to a club and get messed up? Mess up your health, mess up your mind? Does that mean that you have to treat our women the way that we treat our women? Like pieces of meat? And you know it's true. So the thought is what counts, but look out for more night patrols, especially when we start our band. We will be taking beautiful walks around our neighborhoods, just very safe, normal walks, whether it be late in the night or early in the morning, standing up for our rights as citizens to be neighborhood watchers. We will work with the police, you know. Nobody is here to replace the police. But apparently people are getting bludgeoned. Apparently we are number 2 on the list of most rape in the world. Now that could not be true. That have to be a typo. But I saw it online and I will post the link below. You could check it for yourself. That must be a typo, right? Now even if you just drive around in your own patrol, you don't have to get out of the car. Just the presence of a human being. A human being could do so much. A human being is someone with a heart. Sometimes that's enough to stop crimes, you know. I've seen it before. Criminals scared of human beings. Criminals are very scared of warriors who have heart. And criminals come in all different forms. They're poor pipers on the block. Real criminals. Just as much as it have real politicians in office who are real criminals. Anyway, this man said he and his community would tap up the village piper. I believe in that too, because people do deserve to be punished. And that is where real people just get mixed up about non-violence and self-defense and violence and taking up arms. Well, guess what, Trinidad and Tobago? If you, now this is just my opinion, but if you are intelligent and non-violent, then you will do it. You will take up arms. Why? Because you need to defend yourself, you need to defend your woman, and you need to defend your children, at least your children. Because that's what builds a nation right there. And right now they are not in a good way. Tell me this, why is it that you, a Trinidadian, a warrior, should be so scared to walk in your own country street at night? Did you know that wherever there's laws against law-abiding citizens carrying guns, the crime is immense? The crime is immense. And wherever the guns are allowed in our hands as law-abiding citizens, there's hardly any crime. Go ahead and check up these statistics for yourself. And think about it too. This is why I'm saying that communities need to start taking up arms, because the criminals will never, have never, and do not follow the law. So you could get as strict as you want. You could say, no, we will never allow guns, or we will be against guns. You could do that all you want. But guess what? That's how it is right now. Innocents, not allowed to have any kind of gun, but right now we have more and more and more guns coming into the country. Into whose hands? Well, not our hands, the criminals' hands. So we could talk about non-violence day in and day out. But this is what changes our country. We look at the founding fathers of America. What do you think brought them the freedom? What did they say? Liberty or death? Does that ring a bell? People here are worried about police and soldiers. People here are worried about this and that criminal. Did anyone who fought for freedom ever care about those things? Did they care about, oh, the odds are against us? Is that what the youth wants to hear? What youth wants to hear that? What soldier, what real gritty, real Trinidadian hardback soldier wants to hear any kind of talk like that? No, because soldiers want to hear the truth. Truth like the 13 measly little colonies that used to be America. They fought the entire British Empire and they won. 1776. Soldiers want to hear about that. Soldiers want to hear about the 21 brave Sikh warriors who went up and held their ground and fought against roughly the entire male population of Central Asia. All these things happened, you know. They want to hear about warriors like Sant Bhindranwale. Nobody is talking about him. Sant Bhindranwale from India stood up against all of the brutal treatment of Sikhs by their Indian government. It didn't stop there, you know. He was captured alive and tortured to death. But he did it for his people. You know why we don't talk about these kind of people? Because they are called extremists. Because people are afraid that others will come and follow in their footsteps. Policemen, everybody are scared of warriors like this, you know, because guns do not strike fear into these kind of men's hearts. So when I see people asking you, well, aren't you afraid? You could talk right back to them and you could say, aren't you afraid of living in a helpless Trinidad overrun by corruption? Extreme is right because it's an extreme condition. And we're extremely angry because we don't want to be extremely oppressed. Alright, so now we are going to talk on unemployment. Ife did a fantastic job and I think that we all at TrinEnews congratulate her and wish her the best because we look up to her, we are inspired by her. And even though we are not directly associated with her, at least not yet, we can say that she is a warrior and she is in the fight and we are in the fight too. And we want to walk together towards a greater Trinidad. Now, ladies and gentlemen, criminality seems to be the only way that we in Trinidad could make money. That's the only real employment, and why is it that I say that? Well, the people who do get into so-called respectable jobs, they always get sucked into corruption. And that corruption is spending time working on things that do not benefit the country, do not benefit the community. As I said, commenting on the first speaker, the dollar is coming out of the community and going far, far away. Right now, the people who engage in that are people who engage in personal gain. Now, personal gain is good, but these people engage in personal gain at the expense of their community. That's the kind of entrepreneurs and businessmen, businesswomen that we are raising. That is why the rich people hate the poor people, and the poor people hate the rich people, because they're sucking off of each other. It's not an exchange. It's a take. And that is why we are so divided in the end. Divided, if we remain so, we will fall. You think Trinidad is bad now? Go to the ghettos of America and spend time homeless there. Go ahead, try it out, and then you will see how bad poverty could be. And then you will see that we don't want the same thing to happen here. So we have to start re-educating ourselves. You could be a farmer, you could be a janitor, you could be anything and help our nation. Do you know, on the subject of farming and sanitation, do you know that all those things associated with food and cleaning are seen as rural? Rural is not seen as good employment. It's seen as being only for dunce people. That is right, I know this. People without education. This is agriculture and environmentalism that I'm speaking about, People always go over that and say, no, I want a desk job, sitting at a computer. Well, okay, but see if you're really building the nation. The youth in this country have nowhere to go, but we put on little programs so that they could get little degrees or little certificates. That's great, but where do they go? Nowhere. They go to chase the almighty dollar. And every youth needs to learn the beauty of the discipline, the diligence that it takes to earn money. Yes, I agree with that. But let's look at it and see just how much is up against the youth today. People do not want to admit that. Especially a youth who being abused every which way from the time he is born or she is born. Do you go to the ghettos and walk with them and see what is really going on? Do you see that basically these people have no opportunities to go anywhere? But the system shows them one way to go. But if you go that way and you rise up, it's always at the expense of your own people, and you do not get to go back and help them. Poverty is the main thing that pushes crime in this country, and the mental and spiritual help matters. Yes, but only if they come together, mental and spiritual, come together, combine in the form of real political change. That is where it unites you. That's where you get practical. That's where you get nationalistic. Many times you have a lot of these fake spirituals come and tell the youth, especially the young men, well, meditate on it. Calm down, tolerate the situation. But let me be the first to tell you, I do believe in meditation. Every day, I believe that is a root medicine for our nation. But here's where I disagree with the spirituals. Meditation might be the root, but it has to bloom, grow into something physical. Meditation is not just getting the wisdom, but there's a different thing called meditation in action, where you use the wisdom you got in a worldly manner, because we are in a world. This is not the time to be spacey-wacy. If you do go and meditate and make that the top thing in your life, I am certain that you would be blessed with a burning passion, a fire for change in this country. You will be blessed with real nationalism. You will not be a fearful, submissive kind of person who just lets life happen and says, you know what, we will pray and that's it. We will pray. And we will be religious. and we will be proud. But that's between each one of us and our God. Right now, it's not just spiritual people who need to stand up, but businessmen too. They need to utilize their businesses for good. Right now in this country, we are looking for change. And we do feel many times that we are going towards it because we feel that we are progress. But many times it is a fantasy, a mirage, is what they call Maya, an illusion. And TrinEnews is all about pointing out what might be the illusion and what might not be. Because looks can be deceiving, and many of us don't read the book. We judge it by its cover. Do you understand what I'm saying? A problem with the unemployment is a problem with the jobs. And a problem with the jobs is a problem with the infrastructure of the country. And the infrastructure of the country will change when it is that we get serious about education. Not just book sense that will lead to being unemployed with all these degrees and papers and doctorates at home, but real education that could be used in the real world. Real education that has not just theory, but real life experience. And that is one of the things that Trinidad Studios is doing. If you go to our website, you will see that we don't only have tutorials, Trin-etorials is what we call it, but we also have a full program being made to go out there and spread education on animation and film to people who don't usually get that kind of exposure. And you can't just up and say, well, oh, everybody gets that exposure because the internet is free. In a way, you're right, but we are not doing enough to push that kind of education. You know what else is free? On the internet especially? Distraction. You could build all these schools and you could make all of this and make all of that and bring down all of these foreigners to come and talk, but the real change happens when we get together as a community and the people in the community who have a skill go out and share it. And not only that, they don't only go and share it, but they buddy up and they say, listen, you will come on the job with me and you will get a little piece of this action and you will get a little piece of this money. And from that money, that child, that youth will start building their own career. TrinEvolve is about that. TrinEvolve is not advertising here so that we could get all the money. We want more businesses to form. We want more youths to come through us and see what it is to do all of these kinds of artistic services and then go out on their own, make their own TrinEvolve, make their own TrinEnews. Because there is enough money for all of us. Forget all the people who say there isn't. We have plenty money. It's just that all that money is being hoarded up in a few rich houses and it's not being spread fair and square. These are the solutions that we need to not just be talking about, but actually do. And it takes hard work. So all of you out there who are trying to do it, I pray that you will continue on in this journey for real progress in this country. And the way it will be done is when we stop letting ourselves be oppressed and we watch out. TrinEnews is about watching out. Watching out for the good and the bad. Because when Rash Shorty I said, watch out my children, I think he was talking to the children back then just as much, if not more, as he's talking to the children now. Right now. Thank you very much.